first thing he did was take my hand. Not in a greeting, I'd already fumbled through that. Offering my palm too early and then pulling it back when I remembered. Priya had told me that wasn't how you introduced yourself in deaf culture. He'd watched my confusion with the particular patience of someone who had seen it many times and didn't hold it against people. Then he reached across the cafe table, picked up my hand like it was the most natural thing in the world, and shaped it, thumb tucked, fingers together, a small forward motion, into the sign for hello. "That's where we start," he said. His voice was low and a little rough at the edges, the voice of someone who used it selectively. He spoke when it was practical. The rest of the time, his hands did the work. His name was Marcus. The sign for it, his name sign, assigned by his deaf community years ago, was an M, drawn in a small arc near the temple. Clever it meant, apparently. He showed me without commentary, and I didn't ask if it was accurate, because I already suspected it was. My name sign came later. He gave it to me at the end of the first session, and I didn't know what it meant until I looked it up at home, sitting on my kitchen floor with my laptop open and my heart doing something I wasn't prepared for. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My sister Camilla lost her hearing 8 months ago. It happened fast, an illness that moved through her like a tide going out. And when it receded, she was the same in every way except one. She was 31. She had a laugh that used to fill rooms. She still had the laugh, but now the room didn't know what to do with the silence around it. I didn't know what to do either. I wanted to reach her and kept finding I didn't have the right words, literally. Functionally, she was learning ASL, her therapist signed. Her new friends, the ones she was slowly finding in the deaf community, signed. And I was standing at the edge of her life trying to get in with the wrong language. So I found the community exchange sessions every other Wednesday at a cafe on the east side. Deaf and hearing participants, paired together, teaching each other, sharing space. Low pressure, my colleague said. Just show up. Marcus was assigned to me the first night. I think the organizer paired us intentionally. He was patient. She told me quietly, good with beginners who were coming from an emotional place rather than an academic one. He'd looked up when I sat down across from him and assessed me in about 4 seconds with the kind of efficiency that comes from a lifetime of reading people without relying on what they say. "First time?" he asked. "Is it obvious?" "You're holding your hands like you're afraid of them," he said. I looked down. I was in fact gripping my own fingers under the table. I let go. We met every other Wednesday for a month, and then we started meeting on the off weeks too, because 2 hours wasn't enough and neither of us was willing to say that out loud, so we just kept scheduling. He taught me with his hands on mine. That was the only way to learn. He said, you couldn't just watch and copy, not at first, because your hands didn't yet know the shapes they were supposed to make. They needed to be guided. So he would take my hands and move them, fingers and wrists and the angle of my palm, talking me through each sign while his thumbs pressed gently at my knuckles to show me where to soften, where to hold firm. I learned family with his hands wrapped around mine, shaping the F into a slow rotation. I learned listening, an open palm moving toward the ear, and then he showed me the version that meant something closer to I hear you, which was different and more important, and required his hand to come to his chest first. I learned sister, and I had to stop and breathe for a second before I could do it back to him, and he waited without filling the silence, which was something he was extraordinarily good at. One evening, maybe the 3rd or 4th session, he said, "Can I show you something?" And when I nodded, he reached across the table and picked up my hand and pressed it, flat, palm in, against his throat. I went completely still. "I still speak sometimes," he said, his voice low, "when it's practical, but most people don't realize what they're feeling when I do." He kept my hand there. I could feel the vibration of his voice moving through my palm, through the words before they became sound, something that existed beneath language entirely. "That's what speaking feels like from the inside," he said. "Most hearing people never know." I didn't move my hand for a long moment. When I finally did, I said, "Thank you for showing me that." He looked at me steadily. "You're the first person who hasn't pulled away," he said. I looked up my name sign on a Thursday night, 2 weeks into our unscheduled extra sessions, sitting on my kitchen floor because I'd sat down to take off my shoes and just hadn't gotten up. He'd given it to me casually at the end of our last meeting, a gesture near the heart, 2 fingers, a small opening motion, like something unfolding. I'd filed it away and forgotten to ask what it meant in the moment. And then I was home and it was late and I was still thinking about the weight of his hands on mine, so I opened my laptop. It took me a while to find it. Sign languages aren't always easy to search. You need context, placement, hand shape altogether. But I found it eventually in a community glossary, cross-referenced with an emotional vocabulary list that Marcus had actually pointed me toward weeks ago. The sign meant open, or more precisely, the quality of being open, receptive, present, available to what's coming. I sat on the kitchen floor for a long time after that. The night it changed, we'd been at the cafe for 3 hours and neither of us had noticed. The staff were stacking chairs around us in the unmistakable language of "we are closing now," and Marcus looked up and then back at me with an expression that was almost amused. We gathered our things slowly, neither of us rushing, and walked out into the cool evening side by side. He walked me to my car. We'd been doing that for weeks, him walking me out. Both of us finding reasons to extend the conversation in the parking lot for another 20 minutes before I finally got in and drove away. That night he stopped at my car and we stood facing each other, and he was quiet for a moment, hands still, which was unusual for him. Then he signed something I didn't know. His eyes stayed on mine while he did it, a deliberate thing, a measured thing, the kind of thing you do when you want to make sure someone receives what you're sending. I photographed his hands without thinking, raising my phone quickly. He let me. He watched me do it with an expression I couldn't fully read. "I'll look it up," I said. "I know," he said. I drove home and I didn't look it up that night. I don't know why. I think I wasn't ready. I think some part of me knew that once I knew what it meant, something would shift. And I wanted one more night of not knowing, of it existing between us as pure gesture, pure intention, untranslated. I looked it up in the morning. I wanted to say this earlier. I walked into the cafe the following Wednesday with my heart in my throat and sat down across from him, and he looked at me and knew immediately that I'd looked it up, because he was very good at reading faces, and mine apparently wasn't subtle. He waited. I raised my hands. I found the sign. I'd practiced it in my bathroom, mirror approximately 40 times since Thursday morning, until my hands knew the shape without thinking. I made it slowly, carefully, wanting to get it right. I wanted to say this earlier. His expression didn't change dramatically. That was something I'd come to understand about Marcus, and he processed things inward first, let them settle, then responded from a place of clarity rather than reaction. It was one of the things I'd stopped being unnerved by and started being grateful for. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, and looked at me for a long moment. Then he reached across and took my hand, the way he had on the very first night, the way that had started all of this, and held it. Not to teach me anything, not to shape my fingers into a sign, just to hold it. "I know a quiet place," he said. "Better coffee than here, if you wanted to keep talking." I turned my hand over under his and held back. "I have time," I said. He smiled then, slow, unhurried, the smile of someone who had learned not to rush the things that mattered. He signed something with his free hand, one-handed, neat and small. I knew that one. He'd taught me in the second session, laughing quietly at my first clumsy attempt. Good. Later, I would try to explain to Camilla what had happened. We were video calling, both of us signing badly and laughing about it, filling the gaps with facial expression and written notes in the particular shorthand of sisters who have known each other their whole lives. I told her about Marcus, about the cafe, about the way his hands had taught mine to say things I didn't have words for. She watched me sign his name, the M near the temple, the arc that meant clever, and she smiled the smile I'd been afraid I wouldn't see anymore, the one that still filled the room even when the room was a screen. "He sounds good," she signed, slowly, carefully, making sure I caught it. I signed back, "He is." Then she signed something I didn't know, quick and certain, and I shook my head and pointed at my phone. "I'll look it up." And she laughed and spelled it out for me letter by letter, patient and fond. The word was finally, mature audiences, 18+. All characters are adults. This story contains emotionally intimate content.